I had always considered myself a simple, hard-working man, someone who did his best to provide for his family. My wife, Linda, and I had been married for almost 12 years, and for most of those years, life had been nothing short of paradise. Our daughter, Jennifer, was 8, and we had all the things that anyone could ever need: a beautiful home, 2 luxury cars, and enough wealth to live comfortably. While I wasn't a millionaire, I thought we had everything we needed to be happy. But lately, something had shifted. Linda, the woman I loved, had become distant. At first, it was small things, slightly off comments, moments of silence that didn't seem to make sense. She started acting aloof, almost like a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. I'd ask her what was wrong, but she always shrugged it off, saying it was nothing more than stress or fatigue. But as the weeks went by, it became clear that something was amiss. She wasn't just tired, she was distant, unapproachable. She stopped showing any affection toward me, even when I tried to start something romantic. A kiss on the cheek was all I got, despite my attempts to reignite the passion in our marriage. And when we did try, it was always the same. She'd lie there, unresponsive, and the effort seemed pointless. Our once loving relationship had turned into a hollow routine. I thought back to the earlier days of our marriage. I remembered when we first met, how we laughed, danced, and loved freely. But now, all I felt was frustration. The more I tried to reach out to her, the more she pulled away. It was as though I was no longer the man she wanted, and that thought alone was unbearable. I couldn't stand it anymore. Something inside me snapped. Was she cheating on me? It was a thought I couldn't ignore. I knew she had been acting differently, but could it be that there was someone else? I didn't want to believe it, but every little detail, every strange behavior kept pushing me closer to the idea. As the days dragged on, my unease only grew. I began to observe Linda more closely, trying to find any clue that could either confirm or dismiss my worst fears. She was acting like she had a secret life, something she wasn't telling me. But the more I scrutinized her actions, the more I felt like I was on the brink of discovering something I wasn't ready to face. It wasn't just her behavior, it was everything. The way she would occasionally vanish for hours without any clear explanation. The way she seemed distracted even when she was right in front of me. Her mind was elsewhere, I could tell. She was no longer the woman I married, the woman who used to laugh at my jokes, who used to tell me about her day in vivid detail. Now she barely spoke at all. When she did, it was almost like she was talking to a stranger, someone she didn't know anymore. Then there were the little things. The sudden changes in her appearance, subtle at first, but noticeable if you paid attention. She started wearing clothes that were a bit more revealing, a bit more expensive. I tried to convince myself that it was just her trying to feel good about herself, but it felt different. It felt like someone else was influencing her choices, someone who was making her feel like she was worth more than just being a wife and a mother. And then there was the phone, always with her, even when she was in the other room. I couldn't remember the last time I had seen her put it down. She never used to care if I looked at her messages, but now it was like a fortress around her phone. I was tormented by the feeling that she was slipping away from me, piece by piece. At times, I tried to talk to her about it, but the conversations never went anywhere. She'd brush me off with something vague like, "I'm just tired," or "It's been a rough week." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't until one evening, as I was going through our old photos on my phone, that the idea of infidelity truly took root. It wasn't just her aloofness or the changes in her behavior, it was the way she had started treating me. We hadn't been intimate in weeks, and when we did, it was more of an obligation on her part. She'd lie there, barely engaged, and I would do all the work. The spark had gone out of our relationship, and no matter how hard I tried to reignite it, nothing worked. I started thinking back to when things started to change. I tried to pinpoint the exact moment when we had drifted apart, but the truth was, it wasn't a single event, it was a slow burn. And as the weeks passed, I realized that I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling anymore. I had to know. I had to find out what was going on, even if it meant risking everything I had. So I did what anyone in my position might do. I started investigating. I started with the small things, calling her at odd times during the day, pretending it was just a routine check-in. Sometimes she'd answer, and sometimes she wouldn't. When I asked where she had been, the answers were vague, too. She'd say she'd been at the grocery store or running errands, but the timing never quite added up. I installed a camera on the outside of the house just to see if there were any signs of strange visitors. I started paying attention to the cars that pulled into the driveway, the people she spoke to on the phone, the little things that might add up to something bigger. But for 2 weeks, I found nothing. No evidence of a man coming over when I wasn't home. No strange phone numbers. Nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, as the days passed, my suspicions only deepened. She was still distant, still acting like a woman who had something to hide, and I was still desperate for answers. The more I tried to talk to her, the more she shut me out. It was becoming unbearable. But what could I do? I had no proof, just an overwhelming gut feeling that told me something wasn't right. And then, one night, I decided that enough was enough. Our anniversary was coming up, and I saw it as a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of our relationship. We needed to reconnect, to go out and have some fun, just the two of us. Maybe, just maybe, a romantic evening could turn things around. But as I planned the evening, I had no idea how wrong things would go. The night of our anniversary arrived, and with it, the hope that things could be different. I had planned everything down to the smallest detail. Dinner at Plato's, one of Linda's favorite restaurants, followed by a night of dancing at our usual spot. I figured that maybe, just maybe, this night could rekindle the spark that seemed to have vanished between us. I arranged for Jennifer to stay at my parents' house, giving us the freedom to enjoy the evening without any interruptions. When Linda arrived at the restaurant, she looked stunning as always, though I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I couldn't help but notice how she looked at me when I held the door open for her, how her eyes didn't quite meet mine, almost like she was somewhere else entirely. I ignored the feeling, trying to focus on the moment, trying to enjoy the night for what it was supposed to be, an attempt to reconnect. Dinner went well. We laughed a little, reminisced about old memories, and even shared a bottle of wine. It was nice, but it felt forced. I could see Linda relaxing a bit as the wine began to work its magic, but still, there was something between us, an invisible wall I couldn't break through. Still, I tried to push the thoughts aside, focusing instead on the plan to go dancing, hoping that the music and the rhythm would bring us closer. We arrived at the dance club, and I was excited. It had been so long since we had danced together, and I was hopeful that it could bring back some of the chemistry we had lost. As soon as we entered, we found a table in the corner, ordered a couple of drinks, and then made our way to the dance floor. The music played, and we lost ourselves in the beat, just like old times. But there was a tension in the air that I couldn't ignore. We danced for almost an hour, and I could tell Linda was enjoying herself. She was smiling, laughing, moving gracefully to the music. It was almost as if the old Linda was coming back, and for a brief moment I thought maybe everything would be okay. But then, something happened that changed everything. Linda excused herself to go to the restroom. As she walked away, I saw him. Across the dance floor, sitting alone at a corner table, was a man, someone I had never seen before. He was watching Linda, and I could feel my heart tighten. The way he was looking at her, there was something in his gaze that I couldn't ignore. I thought I saw her glance at him briefly as she walked past, but it was hard to tell. I told myself it was nothing, just a passing moment, but my instincts were screaming at me to pay attention. A few minutes later, Linda returned to the table. She asked for another glass of wine, and I could see that she wasn't alone in her thoughts. Her eyes flickered nervously toward the man across the room, and my suspicions flared. What was going on? Why was she looking at him like that? And then, just as I was about to speak up, he walked over to our table. "Excuse me, would you like to dance?" he asked, looking directly at Linda. I didn't even think before I responded. My voice came out harsh, my temper rising. "No, thank you," I snapped. He smirked at me. "I was talking to the lady," he replied mockingly. I wasn't about to let this slide. "The lady is my wife," I said, my voice cold. "And I say who she can dance with." Linda was quick to step in. "Harry, you're being rude," she said, clearly frustrated. I was taken aback. I couldn't believe this was happening. For the first time in our marriage, Linda was standing up to me in front of another man. This wasn't the woman I knew. Rude? I asked, almost incredulously. Do you know this guy? Her reaction caught me off guard. There was a moment of hesitation in her eyes before she answered. What guy? She said, as if trying to act innocent. I was done. The guy you were looking at on your way to the restroom, I said, my voice trembling with anger. Don't lie to me. I saw it. She hesitated, and for a split second I thought I saw panic in her eyes. But then just like that, she brushed me off, saying, I wasn't making eyes at anyone. My heart was racing, and I could feel the anger rising in my chest. I tried to stay calm, but the situation was becoming unbearable. As I looked over at the man again, I saw him smirking, still waiting, still mocking me. I couldn't take it anymore. Linda and I began to argue, our voices rising above the music. She told me I was being silly and that I was overreacting. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. After everything we'd been through, this was how she treated me. As I stood there, my mind spinning, I gave her an ultimatum. Linda, if you dance with him, I'm done. I will walk away from this marriage. She didn't hesitate. Fine, she said sharply. I'll dance with him. I'll deal with you later. And with that, she took his hand and they walked out onto the dance floor. I stood there, frozen, as I watched Linda and the man walk out onto the dance floor. My heart was pounding in my chest and my mind was racing. Every instinct I had told me that something was wrong, that I was watching my marriage unravel in front of my eyes. But what could I do? I had already given her the ultimatum, and now I was left with the reality of what was happening. I waited for what felt like an eternity, watching them dance from across the room. Linda's back was to me, but I could see him, his hand on her waist, his face too close to hers. I couldn't tell if she was enjoying it or just going along with it, but either way, it didn't matter. My wife was dancing with another man, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a deep, hollow feeling that told me everything I needed to know about the state of our relationship. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on my heel and walked out of the club. The door slammed behind me as I stepped into the cool night air. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I had to get away from the situation, from her, from everything that had been going wrong in our marriage. I walked for a few blocks, my mind a blur. The streets were empty, and the city seemed strangely quiet, as though it was holding its breath. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, betrayal, all of it was coursing through me, mixing together into a storm that I couldn't control. I found myself at a hotel, and before I even realized it, I was checking into a room. I needed to think, needed some space to clear my head. I grabbed my phone and started dialing. At first, I was going to call Linda to tell her that I was done, that I was leaving, but then I stopped. What would I say to her? What was the point? The image of her in the arms of another man kept replaying in my mind over and over again. I couldn't shake it. I put my phone down and sank into the bed, staring up at the ceiling. What had happened to us? How had we gotten to this point? I thought back to the good times, the way we used to talk, laugh, and love each other. But now, everything felt like a lie. I had tried so hard to fix things, to make her happy, but nothing seemed to work. I had given her everything, and this was how she repaid me. Just as I was about to close my eyes, my phone rang. It was Linda. I stared at the screen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I wanted to ignore it, but something inside me told me to pick up, so I did. Harry? Her voice was trembling, and I could tell she had been crying. Please, just come back. We need to talk. I'm sorry for everything. I felt a wave of emotion rush over me. My heart was torn in two, but I didn't know if I could forgive her, if I could ever trust her again. The anger and hurt were still too fresh, too raw. I can't just come back, Linda, I said, my voice cracking. You danced with him. You chose to be with him instead of me. How am I supposed to come back from that? I know, she replied, her voice full of regret. I made a huge mistake. Please, Harry, I love you. I've made so many mistakes, but I'm begging you to come back. I don't want to lose you." I stayed silent for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But part of me felt like it was all too little, too late. "I don't know if I can," I finally said. "I don't know if I can come back from this. I don't know if I can trust you again." "I'll prove it to you, Harry," she said quickly. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me." Her desperation echoed in my mind, and for a moment I considered going back, giving her a chance. But the memory of her with him, the way she had looked at him, that smug look on his face, it was all I could think about. I didn't want to be with a woman who could look at another man the way she looked at him. "I can't do this," I said, my voice firm. "I need time. I need space. Please," she whispered. "Don't do this, Harry. I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." I hung up the phone, not knowing what to do next. I knew our marriage was broken, but part of me didn't want to give up on it. I had invested so much into our life together, so many years, so many memories. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore what had just happened. I stayed in the hotel for the rest of the night, tossing and turning, unable to find peace. The next morning, I called a private investigator. It was time to find out the truth, once and for all. I couldn't live with this uncertainty anymore. I walked through the empty streets feeling a strange mixture of anger, hurt, and confusion. The city felt distant, cold, like I was a stranger in a place that had once felt like home. My mind kept replaying the events from the night. Linda dancing with him, the way she smiled at him, the smug look on his face. It felt like a betrayal on every level, but I couldn't shake the part of me that still loved her, that still hoped for a chance to fix things. I arrived at a hotel and checked into a room, needing space to clear my head. The night was long, filled with thoughts that I could hardly sort through. I had never felt so lost, so alone. I thought about our life together, all the years we had spent building something beautiful, something real, but now it all seemed like a lie. A lie I was forced to face. The phone call with Linda that night had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I didn't want to walk away from her. I didn't want to give up on everything we had, but I couldn't ignore what I had seen, what I had felt. It wasn't just about the dance or the man she had danced with. It was about the years of distance between us, the neglect, the emotional abandonment. And then there was the fact that she never told me the truth. I couldn't just go back to her pretending that everything was okay. But at the same time, I didn't want to give up completely. I wanted to believe that we could fix it, that she could fix it. But deep down, I knew that things would never be the same. The next morning, I made the decision. It wasn't one I wanted to make, but it was the only one that made sense. I called the private investigator. I had to know the truth. I needed to know once and for all if she was truly cheating on me or if it was all just a misunderstanding. I needed to find out if there was more to this than just one bad night. I spent the rest of the day in a haze trying to get my mind around everything. I hadn't spoken to Linda since our argument, but I couldn't stop thinking about her, about our daughter, about everything we had built together. The thought of losing it all was unbearable, but I knew it was a possibility, and maybe it was the only way forward. That afternoon, I got a call from the private investigator. I felt a knot in my stomach as I answered, knowing that whatever he had to say would change everything. "Mr. Fremont," the investigator said, his voice calm but firm. "I've completed the investigation. I have the results." I could hear the hesitation in his voice, and it only made my heart race faster. "What did you find?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. The investigator paused for a moment before speaking. "I can say, without a doubt, that your wife is not having an affair. There is no evidence of any kind of infidelity. We followed her, monitored her communications, checked her phone records and her credit card statements. There is nothing." I felt a rush of relief wash over me, but at the same time, I was confused. I had been so sure. The signs had pointed to something far worse. "Are you sure?" I asked, still unsure whether to believe him. "Yes, Mr. Fremont." We watched her closely for 2 weeks. There is no indication of cheating, no strange men visiting, no secret rendezvous, nothing out of the ordinary. I didn't know whether to cry or to laugh. A part of me was relieved beyond words, but another part of me felt like I had just wasted so much time on something that wasn't real. Thank you, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for your work. I hung up the phone, sitting there in silence. It felt like a weight had been lifted, but the storm in my mind was far from over. Linda wasn't cheating on me, but the question was, why had she acted the way she did? Why had she pushed me away? Why had she been so distant, so cold? The truth was, I didn't know. And maybe I never would. 2 weeks passed after I received the news from the investigator. During that time, I stayed in a strange state of limbo, unsure of what to do next. Linda and I didn't talk much. She called a few times, left messages, but I didn't pick up. I needed space, time to process everything that had happened. The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. The evidence from the investigator told me she wasn't cheating on me, but something still didn't feel right. The emotional distance between us was palpable, and that alone was tearing me apart. I had started thinking that maybe Linda and I had simply grown apart over the years. Maybe it wasn't infidelity that was breaking us. It was the slow erosion of our connection, the loss of the passion that once held us together. I didn't know if I could fix that, and I didn't know if she could either. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from Andrea, our neighbor. I knew this wouldn't be good news, but I picked up anyway. Harry, I've been meaning to talk to you, Andrea said, her voice careful, as if she were treading lightly. Linda came to me the other day, and she's really upset. She says she made a mistake, and I know she wants to talk to you, but she's afraid you won't listen. I felt my stomach tighten. I had been avoiding Linda's calls, but hearing this made me feel like I couldn't keep running from the truth. I don't know what to do, Andrea, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm still processing everything. I don't know if I can just forget what I saw, the way she treated me. I get it, Andrea replied. But listen, Harry, she really loves you. She made a mistake, but she's not the person you think she is. I know it's hard to believe right now, but I've known her for years, and she's always been good to you. You've got to give her a chance to explain. The words felt like a lifeline, but they also felt like a trap. I wanted to believe Andrea, I really did, but there was still so much pain, so much doubt. I'll think about it, I said, finally. After hanging up, I sat there for a long time thinking. It was clear that Linda was struggling. I didn't know what she was going through, but I could feel her pain through Andrea's words. Still, I couldn't help but wonder if this was just another attempt to cover up something that had already been broken beyond repair. The next day, I finally decided to call Linda. My heart was heavy as I dialed her number, unsure of what to expect. When she picked up, her voice was shaky, but she didn't waste time with pleasantries. Harry, I've been waiting for you to call, she said, almost desperately. Please, can we talk? I know I've made a mess of everything, but I swear to you, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, I didn't say anything. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her how hurt I was, how betrayed I felt. But another part of me, one that still loved her, wanted to listen, to understand what was going through her mind. Why, Linda? I asked quietly. Why did you do this to us? Why did you push me away? I don't have a good excuse, Harry, she said, her voice cracking. I've been lost for a long time. I thought everything was fine, but I wasn't happy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to talk to you about what I was feeling, and then I made a mistake. I let someone else in. But it didn't mean anything. I swear to you, Harry, it didn't mean anything. I felt my heart break as I listened to her. The pain in her voice was real, but could I trust her? Could I believe that everything she had done, everything she had put us through was just a mistake, or was it more than that? I don't know what to do anymore, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I need time to think, Linda. I can't just forgive you and forget everything. I understand, she whispered. But please, Harry, don't give up on us. Don't give up on me. I didn't answer right away. What could I say? My heart was torn between wanting to forgive her and needing to protect myself. This was the hardest decision I had ever had to make. Let's talk when I get home, I said finally. We'll figure this out. As I hung up, I realized that there was no going back. I had to make a choice. I didn't know if our marriage could survive this, but I had to try. I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. The next few days were the longest of my life. Linda and I had not spoken since that difficult phone call, and I spent my time wrestling with the decision that now lay before me. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again after everything? The investigator's report had given me proof that she wasn't cheating, but the emotional betrayal, the distance, the coldness, the way she had treated me felt just as damaging. I tried to go through the motions of daily life. I played with Jennifer, I went to work, but everything felt like I was walking through a fog. I was constantly thinking about Linda, about the life we had shared, and about the woman I thought I knew, but she had hurt me. She had pushed me to the edge of what I could bear, and I didn't know if I could come back from that. One evening, I received another call from Linda. She had been trying to reach me, but I hadn't answered. This time, something in her voice was different. It wasn't just desperation. There was a softness to it, an earnestness that I hadn't heard in a long time. "I know you're still angry with me, Harry," she said quietly, "and I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I need you to know something. I love you. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, and I've made mistakes. I let my insecurities and doubts cloud everything, and I hurt you, but I am willing to do anything, absolutely anything, to make this right. Please, just give me a chance." I let her words sink in, and for a moment, all I could hear was the silence between us. My mind raced. Could I really give her another chance? Could I open my heart to her again after everything? "Linda," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "I don't know if I can ever trust you completely again. What we've been through, it's torn me apart, but I'm willing to try. For us, for Jennifer, but it has to be different. You have to show me that you're committed to making this work. I can't keep living in this limbo." "I will, Harry," she replied, her voice trembling. "I swear I will. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove to you every day how much I love you, how sorry I am. I just need you to give me the chance to show you." Her words were the lifeline I had been waiting for, but they also filled me with doubt. Was it enough? Was it possible to rebuild something so broken? I didn't know. But I knew I couldn't make any decisions until I had seen the changes in her actions, not just her words. "I need time," I said, "but I'm willing to give us a chance. We'll take it one step at a time, but if we're going to make this work, you need to prove to me that you're all in. No more lies, no more games." "Thank you, Harry," she said softly. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I won't waste it. I promise." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. But maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The next few weeks were a blur. Linda did everything she could to show me that she was serious about making things right. She was more attentive, more present, and most importantly, she was honest. We started going to counseling, talking openly about the issues we had been avoiding for so long. It was hard, it was painful, but it was also necessary. And slowly, very slowly, I began to trust her again. There were moments of doubt, moments when the old feelings of betrayal resurfaced. But Linda worked hard to prove herself to me. I could see the effort she was putting into our marriage, into our family, and I began to believe that she was sincere in her desire to rebuild what we had lost. One evening, as we sat together on the couch after putting Jennifer to bed, Linda turned to me and said, "Harry, I know it hasn't been easy, but I feel like we're finally starting over. And I promise you this time, I'll never take you for granted again." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. There was a warmth in her eyes, a sincerity that I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. "I'm willing to start over too," I said, my voice soft but filled with hope. "But we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm willing to do it with you." The days that followed were like a whirlwind. Linda's efforts to make things right did not go unnoticed. She worked hard every single day to show me that she was serious about fixing our marriage. But while I appreciated the changes, it wasn't easy for me to move past the hurt, the betrayal, the feeling of being abandoned. I couldn't just snap my fingers and forget the months of distance between us, the emotional coldness, the nights where I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. It would take time. At the same time, I couldn't help but notice that Linda had changed. She was more present, more attentive, more affectionate. She started sharing her thoughts, her feelings, and even her fears with me in ways she hadn't in years. She began working on herself, opening up about the things that had been troubling her, the doubts, the insecurities that had built up over time. I had never really known how much she was struggling beneath the surface. We went to counseling together, which was something I never thought we'd need, but it was a step forward. Talking to a professional helped both of us express our emotions, our frustrations, and the deep pain that had been festering between us. It wasn't easy. There were tears. There were hard truths we had to face, and there were moments when I wasn't sure we were going to make it through. But slowly, things started to improve. I began to feel like I was finally seeing the Linda I had fallen in love with all those years ago. However, the road to healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, there were moments of doubt, and there were days when the weight of everything felt like it was too much to bear. I would lie awake at night, replaying everything in my mind, Linda's behavior, her distance, and the way things had spiraled out of control. But each time I found myself slipping into old patterns of mistrust, Linda would remind me, through her actions, that she was all in. She was here. She was committed to rebuilding what we had lost, and she wasn't giving up on us. I had to learn how to forgive, truly forgive. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It took time, a lot of time, and a lot of patience on both our parts. But with every little gesture of kindness, every time Linda took the time to listen to me, every time she put in the effort to be a better wife and mother, I began to let go of the anger and the hurt. I began to realize that forgiveness wasn't just for her, it was for me too. If I wanted to move forward, if I wanted to rebuild our marriage, I had to let go of the past, no matter how painful it was. It was a process. Every day, I had to make a conscious decision to trust her again, to allow myself to believe in the love that we shared, and to let go of the fears that held me back. There were days when it felt like too much, days when I wasn't sure if I could do it. But I never gave up. I knew that if we were going to make it, we both had to be all in, and I had to believe, with everything I had, that we could come out stronger on the other side. One evening, about 2 months after the night she danced with the other man, Linda and I were sitting together in the living room. The house was quiet, and we had just finished putting Jennifer to bed. The air between us felt lighter, more comfortable, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, I felt a sense of peace. Linda turned to me and smiled softly. "Harry," she said, her voice gentle, "I know we've been through a lot. I know I've hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I love you, and I'm here, really here, for the long haul. I promise you, I will never take you for granted again." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with. There was a sincerity in her eyes, a warmth that I hadn't seen in years. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. The walls that I had built around my heart started to come down. Maybe we couldn't erase the past, but we could start fresh. Maybe we could rebuild piece by piece and create something stronger than before. "I'm willing to start over too," I said softly, my voice full of emotion. "But it's going to take time. It's going to take work from both of us. I'm willing to do it as long as you are." She nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. "I am, Harry. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here and I'm ready to fight for us." In that moment, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I also knew that we had a chance. We had a chance to rebuild what was lost, to find our way back to each other. And that, for the first time in a long time, gave me hope. We didn't have all the answers, and we didn't have a perfect relationship, but we had something far more important, a commitment to each other, a willingness to put in the work, and the belief that we could start over together. It was nearly 2 months after that difficult conversation when I finally felt the first true sense of peace between Linda and me. The emotional weight that had been hanging over our marriage began to lift, but it wasn't gone completely. The healing process was still underway, but the progress was undeniable. We had faced the hardest part of our relationship, the darkest hours, and now we were learning to navigate the light together. Linda and I had worked tirelessly to rebuild our bond. Every small step, every kind gesture, and every honest conversation helped restore the trust we had lost. It wasn't a quick fix, but the commitment from both of us was there. I started seeing the Linda I had married all those years ago, the woman who smiled easily, who could make me laugh with a single look, who was the light of my life. I knew that there would always be some scars from the betrayal, some things that might never fully fade. But what mattered most was that we were both determined to move forward. We were no longer in limbo. We had made the decision to fight for our marriage, to choose each other, day after day. One night, as we sat on the couch together, Jennifer already tucked into bed, I looked over at Linda. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in a long while I felt a deep connection, one that went beyond the surface. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the genuine love that she had for me. She had done the work. She had shown me that she was committed to us, and it was a powerful feeling. "Harry," she said softly, her voice full of emotion, "I know we've been through hell. I know I've hurt you, and I am so sorry for that, but I want you to know that I am here. I'm here to stay. I love you, and I'll never take you for granted again." I reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm willing to start over too," I said, my voice full of sincerity, "but we both have to be fully in. No more hiding, no more avoiding the tough conversations. We'll take it one day at a time, but I believe in us, Linda. I really do." She smiled, a soft, tearful smile, and nodded. "I'm here, Harry. I'm not going anywhere. I want this to work. I'm not going to let us fall apart again." That was the moment I knew we had turned a corner. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were beginning to thrive. There would still be challenges ahead, no doubt. But we had faced the hardest challenge, surviving the betrayal, and come out on the other side stronger. Together. We spent the next few months focusing on the things that mattered most, our family, our love, and our future. It wasn't always easy, but we were in it together. Slowly, things started to feel normal again. We laughed more, we talked more, and we even started dating again, just like we had when we first met. It was a slow process, but each day brought us closer to the relationship we had always dreamed of. And one evening, as I held Linda in my arms, listening to the sound of Jennifer's laughter coming from the other room, I realized just how far we had come. We had rebuilt something beautiful from the wreckage of the past. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was enough. "I love you, Harry," Linda whispered, her voice full of warmth and affection. "I'm so grateful to have you in my life." "I love you too," I whispered back. "We made it, Linda. We made it." And as I held her, I knew that we had found our way back to each other. We had survived the worst, and now we were starting over, ready to build something even stronger. The future was ours. As the months passed, the atmosphere in our home shifted. What had once been a place filled with tension and doubt was now becoming a space for healing and hope. Linda and I continued our work with the counselor, and it became clear that we were making progress, slow but steady. We were learning to communicate again, to truly listen to one another. And with every conversation, every shared moment, we both began to feel the weight of the past lifting. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, times when old wounds flared up, but now we had the tools to handle them. We were learning to manage our expectations, to be patient with one another, and to prioritize the things that truly mattered, our family, our love, and the trust we were rebuilding piece by piece. One evening, about 6 months after the dance club incident, I found myself reflecting on everything we had been through. The night I walked out of that club, when I had thought everything was lost, now felt like a distant memory. We had come so far since then, and though the scars would never fully disappear, the love that remained between us was stronger than ever. Linda and I had been talking more about the future, about what we wanted for our family and for ourselves. It wasn't just about rebuilding our marriage, it was about creating a new life, one that was founded on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. We were excited about the possibilities ahead, but we knew that every step forward had to be deliberate, intentional. One of the biggest changes had been in our intimacy. After months of emotional work, we were finally able to reconnect in a way that had eluded us for so long. It wasn't just about physical closeness, it was emotional too. We learned how to truly be present with each other again, how to support one another through the ups and downs, how to be vulnerable and open. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And as time went on, we both felt more connected than we had in years. But even more than that, I saw the woman I married coming back to life. Linda was no longer the distant, emotionally withdrawn woman she had been during those months of tension. She was present, loving, and committed to making our marriage work. She showed up every day, not just for me, but for our daughter, for our family. She was a mother, a wife, and a partner in the truest sense of the word. And as for me, I realized that I had changed too. I had learned to communicate better, to express my feelings more openly, and to give Linda the space she needed to heal. I had learned to forgive, not just with my words, but with my heart. And with every day that passed, I felt a little more confident in the decision we had made to give our marriage a second chance. That night, after Jennifer had gone to bed, Linda and I sat together in the living room, just the two of us. The room was quiet, comfortable. Linda leaned against me, and I put my arm around her, pulling her close. "Harry," she whispered, "I don't think I've ever been this happy." I know we've been through so much, but I feel like we're finally in a place where we can really be ourselves again. I feel like I'm home. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace, a deep, genuine peace. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through hell, but now we're stronger than ever. I'm so proud of what we've built, and I'm so grateful for you." We sat there in silence for a while, just enjoying the quiet, the comfort of knowing that we had made it through the storm. Our journey wasn't over. It would never be. But the most important thing was that we were together, working side by side, ready to face whatever life would throw our way. For the first time in a long time, I felt like our future was full of possibilities. Together, we were going to create a life that was better than anything we had imagined before. Months passed, and life in our household began to feel more like the life we had once dreamed of. Linda and I had faced the worst, and now we were truly rebuilding. It wasn't always perfect. There were still challenges, moments when the past tried to creep back into our lives, but we were stronger now. We had faced betrayal and hurt, but we had also found forgiveness and healing. We continued to work on our marriage, one day at a time. Counseling had helped us find better ways to communicate, and slowly, we learned to navigate each other's emotions, fears, and needs. We were learning to love each other not just in the good times, but also in the messy, imperfect moments that came with life. One evening, as we sat down for dinner as a family, just the three of us, Jennifer laughing and telling us about her day, I looked at Linda. There was no more distance between us, no more walls. She wasn't the same woman who had pushed me away, nor was I the same man who had walked out on her. We had both changed, grown, and come to understand each other in ways we never had before. "Harry," Linda said softly as we finished eating, "I just wanted to say again how grateful I am for you, for sticking with me, for believing in us." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "I'm grateful for you too, Linda," I said, my voice full of emotion. "We've been through hell, but we made it. And now I can honestly say I'm looking forward to the future, to growing old together." She smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "Me too. I can't believe how far we've come. I know we've still got a long road ahead, but I feel like we can handle anything now." And in that moment, I knew she was right. We had come so far. We had worked hard to rebuild what was broken. We had both learned to trust, to forgive, and most importantly, to love again. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but we were no longer the people we had been when we started this journey. We had learned to face our demons and come out stronger on the other side. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect, and that was more than enough. We had a future ahead of us, a future where we would continue to face challenges, but where we would face them together. The lessons we had learned through our struggles had brought us closer, and now we were ready for whatever came next. As the night grew quiet and Jennifer drifted off to sleep, I looked at Linda one more time. There was a sense of peace in the air, a calmness that I had longed for. I knew that our journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was exactly as it was meant to be. Together, we had found our way back. And now we were walking forward, hand in hand, into the life we were meant to build.